Imagine being haunted by a childhood tragedy, your deepest fear keeping you frozen in place while everything around you changes. Now picture that fear thrusting you into a world where time bends, ancient warriors walk the earth, and mystical forces threaten everything you know. For Vitko, what begins as a school trip to the mountains to witness a solar eclipse turns into an epic journey 1,000 years into the past. Thrust into a medieval battle between legendary warriors and dark sorcery, Vitko must face not only his crippling fear of heights, but also the dark forces hunting him. The Stone of Power, a mystical relic, holds the key to his survival, but unlocking its secrets will require courage, wit, and the ability to change the course of history. Brace yourself for an adventure where time, magic, and destiny collide. Will Vitko find the strength to return home, or will he be lost in time forever? Vitko was a child. He and his family were involved in an accident in which their car fell off a bridge, killing his father. Years later, as a teenager, Vitko still has nightmares about it and is terrified of heights. He doesn't want to go to school one morning because they're going on a trip to the mountains to see the solar eclipse, and he's afraid his phobia will set in. His mother persuades him to change his mind by promising that his father will always protect him. Meanwhile, 1,000 years ago, a shaman uses his magic to begin a spell that will lead him to the Stone of Power. The fire in front of him takes the shape of a dragon head, which corresponds to the image on Vitko's jacket. Vitko is enjoying the excursion with his best friend Vovchik and a toy plane he built himself. Vitko has also brought a bunch of fireworks to set off at the end of the day, and Vovchik has brought his own megaphone to mess around with. After walking through the forest for a while, the group must cross a bridge to reach the mountaintop. But Vitko freezes in the middle due to his phobia, forcing Vovchik to drag him back to the beginning. The entire class begins laughing at Vitko for what they consider a silly fear, as well as the fact that his pants are wet, believing he peed himself when in fact it was the water bottle in his pocket. Vitko, humiliated, retreats into the forest and hides behind a cliff. Vovchik pursues him, reminding him that they don't need such friends, but their conversation is cut short when the eclipse begins and an earthquake strikes the area. Vovchik falls off the edge and grabs onto the rocks just in time, but he won't be able to stay there for long. Vitko wants to help him, but his phobia keeps him frozen, and before he can think of anything to do, a magical portal appears behind him and absorbs Vitko along with the megaphone. When Vitko opens his eyes again, he finds himself on the same cliff, but in the past, specifically 1,000 years ago. Nearby, a man in armor named Oleshko is picking flowers for the girl he likes when he is suddenly attacked by a group of enemy Kumans. Defeating these soldiers is simple for Oleshko and his sword skills, but things get complicated when he is attacked by their leader Andiko, who quickly overpowers him and summons more soldiers to apprehend him. Vitko trips while trying to get a better look and accidentally activates the megaphone, distracting the soldiers and allowing Oleshko to escape. Fortunately, Oleshko has a horse and can pick up Vitko and take him away with him. When they arrive at the river, Oleshko summons the spirit that lives there to form a path for him to cross, and once Oleshko and Vitko have crossed, the path vanishes, forcing Andiko and the Kumans to give up and leave. Oleshko takes Vitko to his village, which is guarded by a stronghold from which he is not permitted to leave, and the town leaders chastise him for disobeying orders. Vitko's clothes and manner of speaking strike the villagers as strange, and the leaders lock him up until they decide what to do. Meanwhile, Andiko visits the shaman to discuss the mission's failure, but the shaman reacts positively when he learns about the boy in strange clothes. The dragon on his jacket matches the one in the shaman's visions, implying that Vitko will lead them to the Stone of Power. Vitko is later visited by Olenka, a young girl who brings him milk and checks on him to ensure he is okay. She also confirms that he is in the year 1120. Before Vitko can inquire further, Oleshko arrives to pick him up and transport him to the river for a test. The water spirit will determine whether he is a spy or trustworthy. Vitko is thrown into the river with his hands tied, and for a moment he believes he will die. But the river spirit sees him as worthy and throws him out without harming him. Vitko may still be regarded as strange by the villagers, but he is now accepted as one of them and has the opportunity to meet the leaders in person. There's the wise elder Ovsi, and more shockingly, the fighters Ilya and Dobrynya. When their names are combined with Oleshko, Vitko realizes they're three mighty Bogatyr warriors from legend. They don't believe Vitko when he claims to be from the future until he uses the megaphone as proof, and when he asks for a way back to his own time, Ovsi promises to look into it. Meanwhile, Vitko will stay with Rosanka and her mother, and Oleshko takes him there as an excuse to talk to Rosanka, whom he has been picking flowers for. Later that evening, after speaking with the river spirit, he informs Vitko that there are two ways for him to return to the future. He can either wait for another eclipse to reopen the portal, or find a mage who can teach him how to force it open. Oleshko knows where to find a mage, but he is unsure whether Vitko should go, because mages subject people to extremely difficult trials before assisting them, so Vitko offers a deal. If Oleshko trains him, he will give him his megaphone. Oleshko accepts, and Vitko spends a few days in the village learning how to use the sword and bow, as well as general self-defense techniques. He also meets the stronghold's watchtower, which is tall enough to keep an eye on the entire kingdom, and Tuharan, a Kuman prisoner who steals a pin from Vitko because he is obsessed with gifts. In exchange for his teachings, Oleshko gets to play with all kinds of modern objects, such as chewing bubble gum and taking cell phone pictures. He also learns that in the future, he will be a fairy tale knight. Once Vitko's training is completed, Oleshko gives him the megaphone in exchange for a map to find the mage, but he must promise not to tell the leaders he's leaving, because leaving the stronghold is forbidden, which is why Oleshko can't accompany him. Later that day, Oleshko pays Rosanka another visit, using the megaphone to persuade her to leave the house without her mother's knowledge. But she is unimpressed by the fact that he will become famous one day. The next morning, the Kuman shaman casts a spell on a raven to spy on Vitko, who has left the village and is now traveling through the forest. He is unsure whether he is following Oleshko's map correctly, but he meets Olenka while she is gathering mushrooms and convinces her to be his guide, because she appears to know the area well. Without noticing the raven that is following them, the teens walk for a few hours until they enter a passage between two massive rock walls, and Vitko is suddenly transported to a desolate land, which is an illusion cast by the mage. Vitko can hear the mage's voice speaking in his head, asking him to take a test if he wants to learn. He must confess his greatest fear, and lying will result in punishment. Without hesitation, Vitko tells the story of the car accident, his fear of heights, and how it prevented him from saving Vovchik. The mage commends the boy for admitting his own weakness and provides the information he seeks. The stone of power that will transport him back to the future can be found where the wingless build their nests, and it can be seen when he straddles the wind. Only someone who has the ability to touch another person's heart can do so, but this power can also spread pain and misery. As soon as the mage finishes saying the riddle, Vitko returns to the forest and discovers that Olenka had no idea he had left. She does, however, believe him when he shares his experience and concludes that the wingless nest must be Stork Village. They arrive in this village a few hours later, and to find the stone, Vitko uses a kite he makes on the spot to straddle the wind, as the riddle requires. The kite falls into the water, and Vitko dives in to follow the string until he discovers the stone of power. The raven notices everything, and as soon as the news reaches the shaman, he dispatches a group of Kuman soldiers to steal the stone. These warriors are ruthless, not only kidnapping Vitko and Olenka, but also murdering the villagers and setting their homes on fire. Fortunately, thanks to the watchtower, the soldiers at the stronghold learn of the attack and immediately dispatch their own warriors, led by Ilya, Dobrynya, and Oleshko. They easily defeat the Kumans with their superior sword skills, but there is an archer hidden in the woods that they are unaware of. Vitko notices him, however, and uses his own bow to capture him before he can shoot. A single arrow. When everyone returns to the stronghold, Vitko and Olenka are chastised for leaving, but Ilya promises to guide Vitko the following day to the location where he can use the stone. Meanwhile, Ndako is furious with the shaman because his plan resulted in the loss of an entire unit of soldiers, and threatens to kill him if he does not deliver the stone the next time. The next morning, Vitko is taken to the rock that transported him to the past, but placing the stone of power on it has no effect. Vitko believes it is related to the part of the riddle about hearts, but Osi believes they should wait for a storm because the god who created that stone was the muster of thunder, which could activate its power. When they return to the stronghold, Vitko follows Osi to his home, where he discovers the old man is an inventor working on a flying machine. Obviously, his knowledge is lacking, so Vitko takes the opportunity to teach him about aerodynamics, using a paper plane as an example. Vitko and Ovsi begin working together to create functional wings, but Vitko also spends time with Olenka, who tells him about local legends, including one about star-crossed lovers who leave behind a stone heart. Vitko gives her a cute little paper bird as a thank you gift. While the shaman prepares a new spell for his next plan, Ilya and his men apprehend a Kuman soldier and interrogate him until they discover Andiko knows about the stone, which means they must hide it to keep it safe. Ovsi believes the best hiding place is on top of the watchtower, and when Vitko refuses to accompany him, he reminds him that confronting your fears is important, and Vitko will always have the village's support. Riding the elevator is terrifying, but Vitko makes it all the way to the top and begins to control his fear, albeit only slightly. Ovsi conceals the stone inside an old rock, which is detected by the shaman's magic, prompting him to conclude that the time has come. A few hours later, a storm arrives, and Olenka attempts to tell Vitko that she does not want him to leave, but he does not understand the metaphor she is using. Soon, rain and hail fall on Tuharin in his cage, making Vitko feel bad for him. So he grabs some old sailcloth and covers the cage to protect the prisoner. Olenka is impressed with Vitko's bravery and gives him a kiss on the cheek. That night, a flash of lightning strikes the stronghold wall, breaking some stone that falls near the cage. Tuharin takes advantage of this and uses the debris to break the lock, escaping under the cover of rain. Tuharin travels all the way to the Kuman camp, where it is revealed that he is Andiko's brother, but Andiko refuses to have anything to do with such a deformed beast. Tuharin's gifts to Andiko are unimpressive because they are silly things like a chicken, but when the shaman notices Tuharin has also brought the Stone of Power, Andiko changes his mind. However, the stone has yet to be activated, and the shaman fails to use it, so he informs Andiko that they will need the person who retrieved the stone from the river to make it work. The next morning, the people in the stronghold discover that Tuharin and the stone have disappeared. Attacking the command camp would be a bad idea that would result in their deaths, so Vitko and Ovsi focus on finishing the flying machine because it is their only hope of recovering the stone. Sometime later, while Ovsi and Olenka are out gathering berries and mud to paint the flying machine, they are ambushed by a group of Kuman warriors who kidnap Olenka. Ovsi tries to defend himself, but there are too many of them, and he gets injured. He makes it back to the village, but all he can tell them is what happened to Olenka before she died. Olenka is taken to Andiko, who steals her paper bird and sends it to Vitko, along with a raven as a message. Despite the danger, Vitko decides to go alone to the Kuman camp, where he is asked to activate the stone in order for Olenka to survive. Vitko pretends to know what he's doing by pulling out fireworks from his bag and lighting them while saying random phrases from his English class to make it appear as if he's speaking a mysterious, mythical language. Then he throws the fireworks at the soldiers, causing chaos and confusion throughout the camp, allowing him to grab Olenka and run to the horses. Unfortunately, they are recaptured by Andiko, who gives Vitko one last chance to activate the stone before killing them both. Vitko has no idea what to do until he repeats the riddle in his head and realizes heart to heart refers to the magic of the human bond. He approaches Olenka, and as they hold the stone together, the magic within it comes to life. Andiko orders Tuharin to kill the teens after the shaman removes the stone to power up their army, but he can't bring himself to do so because of Vitko's kindness to him. Instead, Tuharin frees Vitko and Olenka and gets them a horse, which earns him a piece of candy from Vitko in return. Tuharin enjoys giving gifts and tries to impress his brother with candy, but Andiko ends up killing him for what he considers a great betrayal. The next morning, Vitko and Olenka return to the stronghold and warn everyone about the upcoming Kuman attack. All of the soldiers and 3 Bogatyr warriors prepare to defend their home, but nothing prepares them for what they see when the Kuman army arrives. A giant golem controlled by the shaman with the power of stone. The stronghold fires its catapults, but none of the projectiles are powerful enough to harm the golem. In fact, the big guy grabs one of the boulders and shoots it back, breaking the gate. When Oleshko notices how large and heavy the golem is, he decides to leave the stronghold and chase it, expertly dodging every slow attack until he causes the golem to trip and fall into the river, where it is captured by the water spirit. Oleshko falls into the river as well, causing Rosanka to become concerned and rush to the shore to cry for him, but he is fine, and Rosanka rewards his bravery with a kiss. At that point, a new eclipse begins, so Vitko bids Olenka farewell and boards a horse in order to reach the rock with the portal quickly. Unfortunately, Andiko interprets the eclipse as a sign and orders his army to attack the stronghold in low light. Under the wise leadership of the Bogatyr trio, the villagers defend their home from the Kuman army, with even the women landing a hit or two. Andiko, facing defeat, decides to flee with his soldiers before they are all killed. But the shaman isn't ready to give up yet. He still has control over the stone and is able to bring the golem out of the water for another attack. Vitko returns to the stronghold after noticing the golem's return from a distance. He shares a plan to defeat it. Ovsi's words of encouragement remain strong in his mind and help him overcome his fear, allowing Vitko to quickly take the elevator to the top of the watchtower and board the flying machine, which flies as smoothly as it was designed. Vitko lands on the cliff where the shaman is standing, pushing him off to his death and eventually recovering the Stone of Power. While the Golem approaches the stronghold to begin destroying it, Andiko arrives at the cliff as well, intending to steal the stone, so Vitko throws it into the water to prevent it from falling into the wrong hands, causing the Golem to disintegrate. Andiko is furious and wants to kill Vitko for his laziness, but Oleshko arrives just in time to fight him again in a fierce battle of master swordsmen. Because Andiko does not have his army with him this time, he dies in the same way that the shaman did. There's no time to celebrate because the eclipse is about to end, so Oleshko takes Vitko into the forest to find the portal on the rock. Before Vitko leaves, Olenka comes to say goodbye and kisses him, promising to always wait for him. As soon as Vitko enters the portal, he is transported back to the present, where Vovchik is still hanging from the cliff's edge. Vitko, who is no longer afraid of heights, is capable of saving him, and his heroics earn him an ovation from his classmates. A year later, Vitko's mother presents him with an ancient book he has been looking for since his eclipse excursion. Vitko finds the stone heart from the story by following the information in the text, and when he touches it, he can feel Olenka's presence from the past. All right, that's a wrap for today. If you enjoyed the video, hit like. It really helps the channel. Leave a comment with your thoughts and don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. Thanks for watching and see you next time.